At this time, I am recording today's webinar so that we can post this online later today. We do ask that you hold all of your questions until after today's webinar, and we have 30 minutes allotted for you to ask any questions that you might have. If you want to ask a question and are afraid you would forget, you can put those in the chat box, and we will be getting to those at the end of today's webinar, and we'll make sure all of those questions get answered. At this time, I am going to turn it over to Diane Mack, the Northeast Northeast Area 4-H Specialist, and I will get our screen up as well.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate everyone joining us today, and good morning. Sarah Keatley will be running the Zoom room. She's our State Events Coordinator, and I will be facilitating the webinar through this end. So thank you, Sarah. As we get started, I'd like to introduce Mr. Wade Weber, our State 4-H Program Leader. Wade.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for this opportunity to dialogue with you as we think about what it means and what it will entail for us to invest in the future of our programming. Thank you for your leadership that you've demonstrated this summer. So many of you, I've had the privilege of being able to visit some of you in your context and to hear the great stories and opportunities that have happened as a result of 4-H project-based learning through our county fairs, through our camping season, through unique learning opportunities, family-based learning activities all across our state. And so I just want to say again how appreciative I am to your leadership on the local level, the partnerships that you develop with local stakeholders to ensure a great and dynamic learning environment for young people. And so as we enter into this discussion today, I'm excited for our conversation because of the ways in which I believe that this conversation and this investment in our future will continue to allow us to have the best 4-H youth development program in the country and really become the leaders that Kansas State Research and Extension is known for across our nation. So as we move forward, thank you again for your attendance today. For those who will be watching it later, thank you for your dedication and giving time to help us learn together and to help us learn to lead together for the benefit of those that we have the privilege of serving in 4-H youth development. So with that, I'll direct it back.
Thank you, Wade. We appreciate that. So our purpose of today's webinar is to really cover the specific payment processes within 4-H Online, and then to share the future steps that we'll have with the program fee dollars. So as a reminder, the program fee will start with the enrollment process, which starts October 2nd at 8 a.m. As many of you know, October 1st does start our 4-H year, but that is a Sunday, and so we will be opening the enrollment process on October 2nd at 8 a.m. So just to recap some of the facts is that $15 is the fee for each member. There are no family caps. Members may apply for a waiver. We know that Clover Buds do not pay the fee. You may have sponsors pay the fee. There are no late or early bird fees, and Spin Club members don't pay for this year, but that's still under review for 2018. So as you give local leadership to this process, we do emphasize that you communicate with your families so that they know when they begin the enrollment process if they have to pay as an individual family or if a sponsor will pay. And now to show you the payment process within 4-H Online, I'd like to introduce Terry Roberts, our Senior Administrative Assistant and our 4-H Online expert. Terry?
Good morning. Thank you, Diane. I'm going to share my screen. Or, let's see here. All right. Does everyone see the 4-H Online login page? All right there?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, so for the purpose of showing everyone what the new areas look like in 4-H Online, I created a a fake family in our demo county. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to that fake family. Nope. Okay. I'm going to continue on to the family profile. And I've already created my fake youth here to help save some time. So I'm going to skip on through a youth profile until I get to the pages that show our new Kansas 4-H program fee areas. Except for, let me finish the authorizations here real quick. Okay, so at the bottom of the additional page of a youth profile, there are 2 new areas in 4-H Online. There's one just addressing that we have implemented an annual $15 program fee, and that fee is only for organized community club members and independent 4-H members 7 through 18. So here is where they will list what their payment intention is. And what this does is this helps the state 4-H office process whether they should pay a fee or not. If they are a Clover Bud, if they are requesting a waiver, or if they have a local sponsor that has agreed to pay their fee, or if they'll be mailing in a check soon. So that is what these selections help with. So this member would select the appropriate payment intention. If they were an older member and weren't able to pay the program fee, they can request a waiver. If they were to want to request a waiver, they would select that in the payment intention drop-down box, and they could list a reason for their waiver request here. This is not a mandatory field, but it is optional. And they would continue on. They would complete their health form as usual, and they would continue on. They would select their clubs and projects as usual. So I'm just going to scroll through these screens. And at the end of groups is where we are used to seeing the submit enrollment button, and that has changed. The family will continue on from groups onto a new page called Invoice. It will show their invoice payment status as pending. It will automatically create that $15 fee for a youth, even if it is a Clover Bud, or even if they requested a waiver or selected that they have a local sponsor paying, it will still create that $15. But that is what that payment intention selection will help us process. So the state 4-H office will come back in here, and if they are not supposed to pay that $15 fee, we will adjust that after they have submitted their enrollment, after the local extension unit has accepted that enrollment. Then we will take care of that correction there. So this is just kind of a for your information page for the family. There is a scholarship section on this page, but it is not for enrollment fees. So this does not help us at this moment in time. And we'll just continue on. This is the payment page that families will see. And currently we do not have the, let me pull this over here. This is what it will look like when we get online credit card payments going. It is not on there currently because we don't want anyone to accidentally start paying on anything online. But you will see when this is set up, there will be an orange add new credit card button here and a little area that says pay with existing card. I'm going to pull this back over out of the way. This is what the screen looks like right now without the credit card button being added, but like I said, that will be added come October 2nd when families are enrolling for the new program year. At this point in time, it helps families through the payment process of what they are supposed to do depending on their payment method, whether it was check, online credit card payment, if they're a Clover Bud, if they are sponsored, or if they requested a waiver. And once they have selected either to pay with a check or, like I said, when we get the credit card payment going on there, selected one of those two options, then they would click the Select Payment Method button. And the last page is called the Confirm page, and it reminds members that their enrollment is not complete until they click Submit Enrollment, and then it gives some payment instructions. Checks should be mailed within 7 days of their enrollment submission to the state 4-H office. It has been stated that the local extension office cannot accept payments. And it gives our address here at the state 4-H office they can mail to. Online credit card payments will process when the local extension unit approves that member's enrollment. And it reminds Clover Buds, anyone who has local sponsorship, and anyone who has chosen to request a waiver, it reminds those members to not remit payment. Those who have selected to request a waiver, they will be contacted via 4-H Online email within about 10 business days regarding that waiver acceptance. And they submit their enrollment. And then that's when they will be pending. All right. That concludes the member or the family process.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. Now, what we would like to share is that if your unit does have a sponsor for the program fee, we have a group payment form that we would like for you to complete and submit with the check that you'll be submitting so that we can make sure that we match up the correct 4-H members within the system to the sponsorship and mark those paid. So that group enrollment form is on our website where we have all the other information about the program fee. It is password protected. If you have not seen that, you may want to go out and look for that. One of the questions we've had about the sponsorship is the program fee tax deductible. And sharing that response with us today is Daryl Waldron, our Northwest Area 4-H Youth Development Specialist. Daryl?
Thanks, Diane. Yeah, this question often comes up. Is the program fee tax deductible, and not only for a business or an outside group, but also for families? And it is not tax deductible because the person or business writing the check can't specify who the benefit goes towards or anything like that. So for it to be tax deductible, it just has to be money freely given without any conditions as to whom or to what it's used for. If a group or individuals want to give money, they can clearly give it to a club, local council, perhaps a local 4-H foundation. And the key phrase is showing that no goods or services are provided to the donor. We always know that the donor should always consult with a tax advisor, CPA, or whoever they work with as to the deductibility of such a donation, because we're not going to get crosswise with what their CPA or tax accountant says. So, but in general, a program fee, whether it be a family or any other group, is not going to be tax deductible because a goods or service was provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate that. If you have other questions regarding that or any other specific questions, we do have a resource called Program Fee Payment Procedure Questions. That's also on the website. If you haven't taken a look to review that, I suggest you do so after this webinar. Again, we'll send you that link in a follow-up email for those resources. And now we would like to go back to within 4-H Online, and Terry will share with us the approval process within 4-H Online.
Right. Currently I'm still logged in as that program fee family example in our demo county. So I'm going to log out and I'm going to go back to the page and I'm going to log in as a county manager in that same demo county. And this will show everyone at the local level what this process will look like. I have trouble too. 2 L's. It's fibbing to me. Hold on a second here. Try that one. Well,
Terry, somebody said to change your role to admin.
well, it should be. Is it not sticking when I? Sorry. I don't know why it's giving me fits here. I'm going to try my old one again.
In the meantime, while Terry gets logged on, if you have questions, please feel free to submit those to the chat box. We've had a lot of folks
There we go.
who've been doing that already. So thank you for doing that.
Sorry about that delay there. All right, so I'm logged in as training county number 1, county manager. And as usual, to confirm your members, you're still going to go to that confirm members icon. And members needing local county approval will show up in this category here, needing county approval. And to confirm those enrollments, you will click login next to their name. And as usual, again, a county manager could either scroll through page by page by viewing each page and continuing on, or there is that shortcut method to click on this county review link at the top on their personal information page, where it kind of gives you a nice overview. Oh, this brings up a great example here. I wanted to, I guess, convey the importance of not accepting duplicate enrollments. Now that we have the program fee feature turned on, it is no longer possible to delete a member from 4-H Online after they have been accepted. So do not accept a duplicate if it is the same person. In this example, I can see member I'm confirming is Marcella, and the possible duplicate is Marcus. So these two are obviously twins in this example. So this is okay to go ahead and confirm. I'm going to look through their enrollment. I see that they requested a waiver. And I'm going to just go ahead and accept the member. And I have done that as the local extension unit. Again, I've accepted that member. Okay, and you will notice that they still say they are pending, even though I have accepted that at the local level. And that is because the state 4-H office still needs to come through and accept their payment method. And payment method, again, would include their payment intention. Their payment intention of if they're a Clover Bud, if they requested a waiver, if they have a local sponsor, or if they are sending a check. Now, if this member paid with a credit card, they would not be still pending. They would go from pending to active once the local extension unit approved their enrollment, because enrollments will automatically process on their own if the family paid by credit card. So that being said, your members awaiting payment approval in the second box, these will all be, these are all examples of members who have been approved by the local extension unit and are pending that payment method approval, whether it's check, sponsor, waiver, or Clover Bud status. Anyone that is paid with a credit card successfully will never appear in this bottom category. And that concludes the local level acceptance and overview of the program fee related areas in 4-H Online.
So with that, we do highly encourage you to continue to accept them or approve them, sorry, at the local level so that that credit card can go through. What will then happen, the question has been how long, will the process take? And again, it'll be immediate if they pay with the credit card or debit card once the local unit approves that enrollment. It will take longer if the family chooses to pay by check. So they'll need to do that as soon as possible to mail the check to the state 4-H office. And then once it is received there, then the process will be that it will be marked paid on our end. And then if a sponsor is paying, it'll be then as soon as the group sponsorship form is sent in to us. We do have a new term with the payment program fee. It's called an active member, and that person then is any 4-H'er who has then completed their enrollment in 4-H Online. Of course, has been approved by your local extension staff, and then the program fee payment has been paid and processed by the Department of Youth Development. So know that that's a new term for us as well. So we've had the questions about deadlines, and I've seen some of those come across as well. So Amy Solik, our Southwest Area 4-H Youth Development Specialist, will talk a little bit about deadlines, and hopefully we'll answer some of those questions. Amy?
Sure. Good morning. As far as deadlines are concerned, some things will change a little bit and some things will remain the same. One thing that is staying the same is our statewide Kansas 4-H policy of open enrollment. So locally eligible youth may enroll at any time of the year. You may establish deadlines, just like you have in the past, regarding participation in specific project areas in which deadlines are required because of weigh-ins or other similar type experiences. However, Kansas 4-H does have that open enrollment policy. One thing that will be changing, and not yet this year, but for the following year, in 2018 and 2019, only those 4-H'ers who have completed the enrollment process and paid and processed, those that we are calling active members, they will be the only ones that are eligible to participate in state competitive events. And so we've listed some of those examples of events here. Those would include any state judging contests, anything at the state fair, any KAP screening and judging at the area or state level, state scholarships, and nominations for livestock entries. So they've got to be an active member. They've got to have that active member status to participate in state competitive events for the 4-H year 2018-2019. Also beginning with that same year, there will be a different fee structure for 4-H members who are considered active members and those that either haven't enrolled or haven't completed the payment process, and we're calling them non-members at that point because they aren't an active member. So there will be different registration fees for state non-competitive events and conferences. For example, Discovery Days would have one fee structure for a non-member versus one registration fee for what we're considering an active member. I do want to point out that, we know locally you establish add or drop deadlines, and one of those big ones is May 1, and so I'm going to use that as an example. Consider your May 1 deadline in 4-H Online as kind of like a postmark date. So if your family enrolls in 4-H Online, or they add or drop projects by May 1, and that's your local deadline, then as long as they've done their part on their end, even if the payment hasn't been processed, say they're paying by check or paying or requested a waiver, even if their payment hasn't been processed and they aren't fully through the payment process, you can see the date and time that they've enrolled. So as long as it's considered postmarked by May 1, then that should be good enough for your local deadline. Hopefully that analogy makes sense with the postmark concept.
Thank you, Amy. I think that was one of the questions we had. It was about those deadlines, and do know that that active member status won't go into effect with the state events and the registration fees for a whole year. So we're giving a year's grace period. So again, about communication, we just find that it will be important for you as local units to share your payment plans with the state 4-H office. So we have this very short survey. It's only 2 questions. All we want to know is, are local families going to be expected to pay the fee, or will you have a sponsor? And if you could respond to us by September the 15th, we'll be sending this link in a follow-up email after the webinar. On the call with us today, we have Jake Wooster, the president and CEO of the Kansas 4-H Foundation, and we appreciate the support of the foundation and would ask Jake to just kind of respond as we think about moving forward with funds from the foundation. Jake?
Thanks, Diane. I'm glad to be with you today. Thanks for the opportunity to share with you a little bit about where we're at the foundation and what we continue to work on. The comments that you see on the screen were from an email that I responded to Diane about a while back, but continue to be appropriate and accurate. And so I would say that we're in this place right now. The foundation has committed to supporting the waivers for the young people who will qualify for them and request those. We will fund those waivers at the state level and make sure that 4-H remains accessible to every young person in Kansas who wishes to have a 4-H experience. There are a couple of other pieces that when the task force looked at opportunities for investment from the program fee, they said there are pieces that we want that fee to go toward, and there are pieces that we want that we would rather not, and find other sources of funding or leave those sources of funding engaged in as well. One is a marketing and growth initiative. So some of the marketing initiatives that are being undertaken at the state level, we're assisting with those, we're participating in those, and we will be funding some of those as well. As many of you know, the state 4-H license plate, the Kansas license plate will be available after the first of the year. We're looking to that as a source of revenue to help fund those marketing initiatives in the future, those growth initiatives in the future at the state level. But as well as providing some funds back to the local level for your uses. We have committed in the short term to continuing to fund marketing efforts. and we'll do so. We think that's good for everybody. The other piece that has been we have discussed is volunteer screenings. We know that is a significant, not insignificant expense for many of you, most of you, and determining how to fund that at the local level, I think, has been a challenge. I would tell you personally, I would like to find a way that we are able to centralize that and fund that at the state level. We have not yet identified the funding source that would allow us to do that. And it is right now part of an overall effort that we're working on. Wade leadership and others in the state 4-H office, and some of our folks on the foundation side and some of our funding partners, as we begin to think about what is an overall initiative to grow 4-H and to grow our volunteer base look like. We intend to fold that volunteer screening into proposals that will go out to funding partners relative to that bigger picture item. But at this point, we have not secured those funds, and so for the time being, those remain a responsibility of local units, just as they have been in the past when it comes to screenings. As we have funds available and as we look for opportunities to do that, we'll of course communicate that to you as soon as we can. I don't anticipate that being the case for this upcoming 2017-18 4-H year. I expect that any funding that we identify for volunteer initiatives, we hope to find that funding soon, but that funding would really be geared toward the following 2018-19 4-H year. So we look forward to continuing to partner with all of you. We want to be a resource in any way that we can and support the efforts that are happening. Most importantly, we want to make sure 4-H is available to all our Kansas youth, to every youth that wants to experience 4-H, and we're happy to be a partner in that.
Thank you, Jake, and we really appreciate the support that we've been given, and especially for those waiver dollars and as we continue on into the future. So thanks for being on with us today. So one of the recommendations from the task force concerned the 4-H online cost, and I'm going to ask Daryl Waldron to share about that.
Thanks, Diane. As you remember, the task force was appointed. It was 8 field staff or KSRE 4-H staff who work with 4-H that were appointed, and they met last winter. And their recommendation was that we go back to the process where counties' extension offices are billed for the cost of the 4-H online program. And just as a little bit of background, specifically Kansas 4-H Youth Development, the past 4 years with 4-H online has invested over $52,000 for the cost of that program. And unfortunately, Kansas 4-H Youth Development can't sustain paying for that in the future. And so the recommendation was to go back to assessing counties for the cost of the fee for 4-H online, and that's going to be $165 for this coming year. Offices will be invoiced on October 16th of this year, and payment will be due on December 15th of this year. And we'll share with you annually what the fee for 4-H online will be as soon as we find out each year. But it is a little bit more of a looking at the bigger picture. So Kansas 4-H, State 4-H office has been investing staff time and resources many years for an enrollment program, and that includes 4-H online that we currently have. Prior to that was 4-H Access, and prior to that was 4-H Blue Ribbon. So we know the benefits that these programs benefit local units, county 4-H programs, staff and families, and it provides a valuable service to our stakeholders. So I'm just trying to put it in the bigger perspective. I don't think any of us, I think the benefits of a computer program enrollment system are very positive overall. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. So another common question we've had is, how will program fee dollars be spent? And so to answer that question, I'm calling on Wade to respond. So Wade?
Hello again. As many of you might recall from our past conversation back in April regarding how we will be pursuing investments for our future, the task force of your peers had put forward recommendations regarding areas that would benefit all 4-H learning environments across our state. And the 3 primary areas that you can see obviously listed in front of you: project support, volunteer development, program enhancement. And I've appreciated the feedback that I've gotten from many of you asking questions. Nobody seems to disagree per se with the general headers, but they want to know, what does that look like on the local level? What does that look like in our system? What does it look like for an individual learning pathway of a young person who's involved in the 4-H program? And I think those are all very valid and appropriate questions as we move forward. And so as I highlight a few of the areas that we've identified so far, but I also wanted to acknowledge the fact that we'll be launching a process to solicit feedback and to aid the whole organization in the prioritization process as we think about and prioritize where these investment dollars will be going forward to enhance the Kansas 4-H Youth Development Program. So obviously, as we talked about project support, just some areas that we've identified up until this point, and is talking about what does it look like for all of our project support to be characterized by engaged learning, training along the lines of what are the principles of engaged learning, what are project areas related to project leader development and training, really being able to articulate well from a consumer's perspective, what does it mean for a young person to be a part of the 4-H pathway of learning going forward. And so it looks like an interconnected part of a whole instead of just a sum of parts. And so those are some of the things when it comes to project support and experiences. There are areas of project, areas like, I know many of you are starting to do things like entrepreneurial education. What would it look like for us to continue to support that development of that type of an area, and countless others as things change in our learning environments. So we think about number 2, the volunteer development area. What are the tools needed to help with local units to aid in recruitment, investment in volunteers? How do we help those volunteers grow in their own volunteer journey? What does a great adult engagement look like in the sense of learning environments for our volunteers, as well as equipping them with the tools needed to help them succeed in facilitating learning environments for young people? Talking about refining our ICETR process and helping highlight areas of evaluation, helping empower self-evaluation, club evaluations, and ultimately at the end of the day, tools of accountability to really empower volunteers to not only have the confidence, but also the competence to really be champions at our local level. And I think there's tremendous examples of great things happening. And again, how do we mainstream that and allow that to be something that benefits the whole system going forward? That's when we think about volunteer investment, volunteer development investment. Those are some of the areas that we're talking about. Program enhancements for benefiting community clubs has been given some feedback to me, and it's very appropriate. How do we enhance the community club experience? It is the mainstay of the 4-H Youth Development Program. And so what are some tools that would be available, as well as trainings that would aid not only our volunteers, but also our young people, and obviously you as local agents to enhance that experience? So what does it mean to continue to invest in areas related to youth governance? What does it mean to deepen our understanding of youth-adult partnerships? What does that look like in the local unit? How do we empower young people to develop those community partners and invest their time and energies and resources in ways that will benefit the local learning environment? How do we help facilitate youth voice and youth choice? Increasing and deepening youth engagements have been a question many of you have asked me. How do we continue to retain young people in our program and also attract young people into our program? And a lot of our conversation goes towards youth engagement and what does that look like? So how can we give tools that will enhance that going forward and ultimately grow the commitment and, dare I say, the love of young people for their area of learning, their club, and their community that they're a part of? Now, underneath that, we're going to talk about areas of foundational supports that many were identified with the task force prior, and we're going to continue to invest in those areas related to marketing. If you heard from Jake, marketing is something that all parties will be investing in. We know that you at the local level are doing that as well. But what are marketing pieces that can continue to be in alignment with our national 4-H partners, but also translate into something that's applicable at the local level? Many of us know that the Kansas State Fair is a significant public venue where 4-H is highlighted and showcased in a scale that, quite frankly, is pretty unique. And so how do we continue to enhance that message there at the Kansas State Fair with these investment dollars? And then the two last areas I want to talk about is continuing to grow our campus partnerships and the campus partnership deliverables. I've talked with many of you, and not in as many as I have wanted to, but appreciate the times that I've been able to talk with many of you so far, and looking forward to more conversations with you. But one of the frequent reactions and frequent things that we're looking for is, how can we have a partnership with Canvas be something that's really tangible and makes a difference in the local learning environment and the community club? And so how do we bring deliverables from K-State as well as potentially other resources? But let's try and maximize what we can from K-State, our significant university partner here in Kansas. And then lastly, an area that we've highlighted this summer, some of you have been aware of some of the situations that have arisen, but money will be dedicated towards providing accessibility to any 4-H'er who wants to be a part of our educational experiences. Again, I'm highlighting the fact that some of you have known through camp and others that we've come up with a share system between local units, the state program office, as well as the program funds itself, to provide what we're calling reasonable accommodations to young people so that they can participate in our program and acknowledging whatever means that we need to have to enable them to be a part of our learning experience. And so funds will be dedicated towards those areas going forward. The last part, so that's kind of the generalized what are some areas, but the process that I want to share with you today, and you'll be seeing subsequent over the course of September, October as well, is inviting you as well as stakeholders within the Kansas 4-H program to a process of listening, of hearing, and asking questions of prioritization regarding where our program is investing its dollars and resources when it comes to, again, thinking about our preferred future going forward. So with that, I'm currently working with our Department of Public Relations here, as well as some of our IT professionals, currently in conversations about creating opportunities for feedback. And so a process which will involve young people in the Kansas 4-H program to give us insights and give us recommendations going forward. Have an opportunity for parents to give online feedback, and on occasion we may have focus groups that will give some feedback as well as opportunities for local partnerships as well as local stakeholders internally within our organization, as well as potentially some voices from outside of our organization as we think about those who have yet to be involved in the 4-H program, asking those questions. What would be helpful? What would incentivize you being a part of our program going forward? So that's what I mean by asking some of that feedback to come from some external partnerships going forward. And then obviously we'll have another conversation when we gather together for our 4-H reboots. They're that last week of November, first week of December, where we'll have an opportunity to dialogue about what we've been hearing from our stakeholders across the state during this process. And so wanted to let you know that process will be unfolding here in September. Like most of you, I wish it was further along than it is at the moment, but I am excited about the opportunity as we move forward to solicit feedback from our young people, the parents, our volunteers, as well as our local partners as we think about the future of the Kansas 4-H program. So with that, I'll transition back to Diane. Thank you.
Thank you, Wade. So as we kind of wind up here and get ready for questions, just be reminded that there are resources on the Kansas 4-H website about the program fee process. It's under investing in the future of Kansas 4-H, and that link will be sent to you after our webinar in a follow-up email. And we will be posting a copy of this, the recording and the PowerPoint from today. So now we will go ahead and open it up for questions. So Sarah, I'm going to let you facilitate that process.
All right, thanks, Diane. Thank you to everybody who asked questions. The question was asked if we are going to record the Q&A session, and we sure are. So if you do not have time to stay on and listen to all of the questions, You can log in later on today and listen to it on the recording. The first question is from Jill Martinson. How will the merit of waiver requests be determined?
So this is Diane, and what the process will be is that that waiver information will come into the 4-H online system, and then a committee of 3 will quickly look at that, and then the response will be sent back within 10 business days to the individual. We do want to make sure that we're open and accessible to all 4-H members, and so some of the reasons that we have listed within the system are just examples of what someone could share if they wanted to.
All right. This one is probably for Terry. We selected a waiver, but it defaulted to personal check. Will that show on the invoice and payment pages, or will it default to check?
There are only 2 true ways to submit your enrollment. You either pay online with a credit card or you select check. That is why the payment intention drop-down box is so very helpful. If they select a waiver, it is still going to list a $15 fee, but that will be removed by the state 4-H office when we go to approve their payment.
All right, thanks, Terry. The next question is from Aaron. How will it be handled when we have sponsors to help pay for a portion of the fee, but not the entire fee?
Beth, would you like to answer that question?
Yes. When the check comes in, it's going to have to cover the entire fee. And so that's one of those things you'll have to figure out on the local level. If that fee is only going to cover a partial amount, then you'll have to collect those same fees, or what is left from those 4-H families, so that it can all come in as one check.
All right, the next question has to do with 4-H Online. Terry, why can't a report be printed from 4-H Online for the sponsor payment? Why does the local unit have to perform an extra step for providing a sponsor? And actually, Diane, this probably is something you can answer as well.
Yes, on the group enrollment or group payment form, you can go ahead and submit a list from 4-H Online. We didn't mean to say that you had to type all those or reinvent the wheel by putting that information. If you just want to at least share the information that we've asked here and submit it with the check, that will suffice.
All right. The next question is from Margaret. Regarding those requesting waivers or paying by personal check, when will the local office accept their enrollment?
The local office will go ahead and approve that enrollment, and Terry, back me up on this. I mean, they'll approve that, and then once the waiver has been determined or the check has been receipted here at the state office, it'll be shown within the 4-H Online system.
Correct, yes. And we will be running informational reports to check for the waiver requests and the Clover Bud age claims so that we can approve those fairly soon.
All right. Will there be an updated re-enrollment pamphlet with the new instructions?
Yes, Terry.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
Yes, it's more like a booklet now, and it is posted on the 4-H website. We have created a new page for families so that we can put family resources on there, so that public-friendly links are available for you to share if you wish. And then we also have resources for staff only, and those are still on the 4-H website under staff resources, and 4-H Online has their own support page there.
All right.
That link to those resources will be shared in a follow-up email after this webinar.
All right. The next question is from Jill. If a unit has a sponsor, but they also have multiple families who qualify for a waiver, how should that be handled? Is that question?
I'll address this one. Jill, thank you for the question. I think at this point, I would default to the local unit, as far as making that determination. So I'm making an assumption here that if you have a local unit sponsor who is providing, say, a set number of sponsored scholarships or what have you, or waivers for that in turn, it really is up to a local unit to make those determinations in conversations with that local sponsor as far as what their purposefulness would be, I guess, in that. Because at the end of the day, I think it's a conversation that the way the system is designed right now, it's really for an individual family to make that determination if they would like to request a waiver. That's why the enrollment process is primarily, individually and personally making that determination. And so I guess my default would be is if you're in conversations with a local family who wants to move that forward and they would like to apply for the waiver, please encourage them to check that box and to move that forward. But I also think my assumption is that you would come alongside that family and say, but if there's a sponsor who's able to do that, on their behalf, that would be something that I would encourage and trust that your leadership on the local level would be able to move that forward in the most positive way. So.
All right. The next question is from Lauren. Terry, you'll be able to answer this. What happens if a family selects to pay by check and then you never receive the payment from the family? And Diane, this would also be under your category.
Diane, would you like to answer that?
So what they're going to be doing, I'm watching the process, and then eventually, after a set amount of time, if when Terry runs that report that no payments have been received, then we would contact them via the email through 4-H Online to say a check has never been received.
All right. Next question is from Katrina. Does there need to be a set deadline for when enrollments can no longer be accepted on the online system due to a group payment process? And if you need clarification on any of these, just let me know and we can ask.
Terry, do you want to share the process if a local unit can determine and shut off the system? I'm not as familiar with that, but this again is about the whole communication with your family so that you can share with them to be sure and get enrolled so that that sponsorship can be determined.
Okay, apologies. I was trying to figure out how to turn my audio up. Can you repeat the question?
Yes, the question is, does there need to be a set deadline for when enrollments can no longer be accepted on the online system due to a group payment process?
And like I said, and Amy reverted this, we do say that there's an open enrollment process that somebody can enroll any time of the year. So if you have a sponsor, let your families know that they need to enroll by this certain date, but then if you have new 4-Hers, then you'll need to check back and then make that process again happen.
And this is Wade. I'll just say that both Terry and others have said the vast majority of our enrollments historically have been before the January 1st time frame. And so I would venture to say that for most group enrollments that most folks will be having sponsorships. At least this is what I've heard on the ground too, that most sponsorships will come in that fourth quarter of the year. Say a foundation or or a donation that comes at the end of the year towards those. So what I'm hearing from feedbacks on the ground is that most will be doing group sponsorships by the end of the year. That being said, there might be situations that, like a new 4-H member comes in, in the new year. To me, that would be a local unit decision when it comes to those processes on when you coordinate, whether as an agent or an outside entity agrees to pay. That would be a local unit management issue regarding that going forward. So.
All right. Terry, this next question is about duplicates. What do we do with our duplicates, the ones that we have because of family issues?
I'm assuming we're talking about split household situations. And in that case, I would say, Wade, if you want to kind of think about that and hear what I have to say to see what you think, I would really assume that the parent with residential custody who's enrolling the child in 4-H would handle the payment if they are making a payment. And if a duplicate record is truly needed in a split household situation, then just contact the state 4-H office because they should be listed as a state approved duplication at that point anyway for ES 237 purposes. And then we can go in and waive payment for that second duplication.
All right. Another question about 4-H Online, Terry. If the member is still pending because of payment, will they show up in reports that they print?
Well, it depends on how you are filtering your report. If you are filtering your report to also capture pending members, then yes. If you are filtering your report to only capture active members, then no. I have been working on some reports that will help the local extension unit determine, where's it at? It would be under your shared directory under a folder called Enrollment Management. There are several reports I'm working on sharing where you can figure out if the youth is pending because of a Cloverbud claim, a sponsorship claim, a waiver request. You'll be able to see enrollment submitted date versus member approved and things like that will help you make local decisions.
All right. The next question is from Jill. Is it possible to pay by family with a credit card, or must each member be paid individually? And Diane, if you want to answer this.
Each family must be paid individually because it goes through as they enroll the child.
Each member,
Yes.
All right. The next question is from Sarah Moss. If a club votes to pay for the fee of its members, the group payment form is due on December 15th. However, we know that individuals join throughout the year. Will the club need to complete this form monthly, quarterly, etc., to pay for new members? Diane?
Again, we don't see it being, we have yet to determine that. I mean, to me, we just need to make sure that new members are accepted, and if they want to pay, I would say quarterly at this point.
All right. The next question, Terry, this is for you. If a member chooses the wrong option on the payment option, can that be changed if we send the enrollment back to them?
I'm not sure if we're talking about payment intention or if we're talking about payment option, like if they select a credit card versus check. Payment intention. Yes, payment intention can be changed. by the family, and it can even be changed by the local extension unit or the state 4-H office. If you find that it's a mistake, it can be corrected.
All right, the next question is from Glenn. And actually, I'm going to refer this question to Daryl Waldron. He wants to know if the online program costs $17,000 a year.
The 4-H online cost for 2017-18 is $17,500. So, yeah, it really is that much.
All right, thank you. Let's see here. The next question is Jake Renner wants to know who was selected to serve on the waiver approval committee. Diane, I'll turn that to you.
That has not been determined yet.
All right, the next question is from Glenn again. If the waiver is denied, will the office be contacted to give input? Diane, I'll turn that to you.
We don't see that many will be denied, but yes, the office will be contacted.
The next question is from Barber County. If families put in their credit card information, will it be kept on file or will it be used one time only? Who wants to take that question?
I can take that one, and then others can give me feedback. The credit card information will be handled vis-a-vis 4-H Online, who is our service provider. And so there will be no credit card information that will be kept on file here.
To follow up with that, it is against PCI Level 1, which is Payment Card Industry Level 1 standards, to hold any kind of credit card on file. So it would be in a violation of those rules in order for us to keep those on file. So
I think what she was asking, or maybe the way I read it, was within 4-H Online, if you enter a credit card, is that kept there so that if you log back in to enroll another child at a later date, is it saved, or do you have to enter it every single time?
Terry, do you happen to know the answer to that?
I am not exactly sure, to be honest. I know that after you add your credit card, you click Pay with Existing Card. You can change your billing address after the fact. It can be edited, but I'm not sure if the system keeps the credit card numbers in there from year to year. Or I don't think it keeps it in there at all from member to member, because it is member-based and payment is by member.
I would agree. To me, it's not going to remember it, but we'll check for sure.
The only other thing that I'm aware of is it also depends on your browser and your browser settings, because there are certain browsers that do remember things on your given laptop. So unfortunately, it's not a systems things that we can address as Kansas 4-H program and our service provider with 4-H Online. What we've been told through Kansas 4-H and 4-H Online is that each process, we did ask about the family bundling, but unfortunately, the way the 4-H Online is structured, that was not going to be an option for us going forward. So we advocated, but we're not able to be successful in that. So we are told that every process will be individual, and every I think there's a question later, will it come as a separate transaction on the credit card or debit statement? Yes, it will be. So if you have, like I have 4 children that I'm enrolling this year in 4-H, we'll have 4 credit card transactions related to that will actually state 4-H Online, and that so that you'll be able to reference that in your monthly billing statement, or for our parents, that kind of stuff. So,
all right. The next question is from Jill Martinson. Are any further press releases expected from the state office regarding the program fee, and will those be shared with local offices prior to the release?
Yes, Jill and I have been talking about this before, and thank you, Jill, for bringing it up. And we do have further press releases formatted or scheduled, but the dates to be determined. I'm actually literally meeting with Jason Hackett today after this call to finalize some things and to move forward into kind of how we're going to outline things, and then also talk with our marketing community as far as giving input as to how those things look like going forward. But I appreciate the suggestions that sending those to local units beforehand, and we will do everything we can to make that happen. So thank you for that suggestion.
All right, the next question is, if a county has a sponsor for the program fee, can the payment part to be paid by sponsor be the only option to choose for that county? And Terry, that's a question for you.
No, it cannot. That is why it's so very important that families know prior to online enrollment if they have a sponsor or not.
All right, the next question is from Glenn. If I have a donor that will help with families having a hard time paying, can you contact the office before denying the waiver? And then there's two questions. We'll go with that one first. And Glenn, I think that's absolutely possible to contact you before denying that. The next question is, if a club or donor is paying for a whole club, can we lock other payment options out so a family does not pay too? And that's the question that Terry just answered. So no, unfortunately, we do not have that ability to do that. The next question is, if a member is enrolled in different counties, do they need to pay the fee twice?
No, they won't need to pay the fee twice. They will only pay it for their primary 4-H organized community club just one time. So even if they are in a 2 clubs or a club and a project club, whatever have you, they will only pay that fee one time.
Beth, can you allude to any more on that question? Because I know you had that question earlier. Is there anything else we need to share, Beth Henshaw?
Can you restate the question?
Yes. Let me go back up to it. If a member is enrolled in different counties, do they need to pay the fee twice?
No, and I think Terry answered that adequately.
Thank you, Beth.
Jake, your question is, so each member will show up as a separate transaction on their credit or debit card statement, and that is correct. Each transaction, each child will show up as a separate transaction on those statements. The next question is from Charlene Miller. How could any waiver request be denied without any supporting documentation from the family? All they are doing is requesting the waiver, and the input reason is optional. Thanks for clarifying.
As I've said that, we want to be open and accessible, so I can't see many of them being denied. It will be looked at, but to me, not many of them will be denied.
All right, that looks like we've gotten all the questions on the chat box. We do have some clarification on some numbers that have been in press releases, and we will definitely make those. We are aware of that, so thank you so much. I see that we still have 78 people online today on our call. Does anybody have a question that they would like to ask? And if they do, you can just unmute yourself. Jessica Flory wants to know, how many waivers will we be accepting?
We will accept any and all waivers. There's not a number.
Again,
I'll address that we do not have a finite number, but do know that as our sponsors, we will raise money for it. But like most things, we will continue to advocate for young people to be a part of the program, and we will raise dollars to help enable those young people to be a part of our program. At the same token, we are not going to implement a very elaborate system of evaluation. It's going to be a simple, streamlined process where we will be looking for ways to empower young people to be a part of the program. So just know that this is not going to be a giant apparatus, of evaluation per se, as much as we have to be responsible on our end too, because money is not just there. We have to raise it from our end, and we have to advocate with sponsors just like you do on the local level. So that's the reason why we talk about accepting or not accepting, because we can accept things as long as there's money there. You do the same thing on your local level too. So just know that's the spirit of what we're talking about when we talk about waiver requests and processes for evaluation to approve those requests. Okay, so it's primarily financial going forward.
All right, the next question is from Ross. Does payment intention show up for volunteers and staff? And Terry, I think that's going to be a question for you in 4-H Online.
Mm-hmm. No, it will not. It will only show up for youth.
All right, the next question is for the youth enrolled in multiple counties, what payment option do they choose for their secondary county? Terry,
I would say waiver.
Okay. All right, does anybody have any other questions? You can either unmute yourself at the bottom left hand of your screen, or you can insert those questions into the chat box.
Hey, Sarah.
Yes.
This is Glenn.
Yes, Glenn.
It's easier than my fat fingers typing. If there is a waiver, why does any money really have to change hands, or why do we even have to raise money for it? Just write it off and call it good.
Diane, I'm going to send that question to you.
Ask that again, Glenn. I'm not following, and maybe Wade can answer as well.
Okay, we keep talking about raising funds at the state level for those that need waivers. Why does any money really have to change hands? Just write it off as a program expense and move on. Does that make sense? Or do we really have to have the money coming from somewhere to cover those kids in the 4-H program?
Well, at this time, as Jake said, that the foundation is raising dollars for the waivers, and I've actually worked with Michelle a little bit on that. So yes, they are working on raising actual dollars to cover the waivers.
Okay, but my question is why do we really have to, unless you really have, do you really have to have that money for every member? Because if they run out of money and don't have the money for waivers, what are we going to do then?
I might jump in. I won't answer that from a policy perspective because that's the state 4-H office's question to answer from a policy perspective. From our perspective, and the reason we are attempting to raise money and intend to raise money for waivers is because that budget is built on the idea that there is dollars there for every 4-H member. Those dollars of revenue need to be generated no matter what if the program is going to be able to reach its goals. So from our perspective,
that answers my question, and that the money needs to be generated. So that answers my question there, that the money does need to be generated.
Does that answer all of your question, Glenn?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks.
The next question, Wade, I'm going to turn this to you, is why wouldn't every member request a waiver if there is no limit?
Why wouldn't every member request a waiver if there is no limit? Well, I would have to answer that and go back and say, well, what's the intention behind purposely putting forward a waiver? To be honest with you, there has been a waiver. You know, we have been contributing to that program for a number of years. We've been, in fact, providing a tremendous service for a very long period of time, and we'll continue to invest in that going forward. Coming from a state that had a program fee, I'm just going to share it this way. This is an opportunity to invest in the direction of our future. And there is an opportunity to enhance the experiences that young people have been a part of going forward. And what I heard from most families that I had interacted with in my prior experience was an opportunity to invest in things that they believe in. And so when it comes to the opportunity to help perpetuate that investment going forward, and the way in which we are able to invest in things and to bring some tremendous innovations that couldn't be done in the local school, some early adaptation partnerships with the colleges, leveraging connections with the business and industry that were really easy and accessible for people to be a part of. The ability to raise the funds to help to create those kind of opportunities that Glenn was speaking to allows us to have more options going forward. To me, the spirit of the question that you say, well, why wouldn't every member then request a waiver? It actually doesn't change the equation if we turn around and say, every person should just say, I want to have it sponsored or scholarshiped. At this point, it's an invitation to our membership, our parents, to say, is the Kansas 4-H program something that you believe in? Is it something that you want to see grow and thrive? Do you want to continue to build upon our strengths going forward? And it's an opportunity for stakeholders to turn around and say, yeah, I believe in where we're going. And to me, that's the impetus for the question of how I approach the job each and every day, is that I want to give leadership and say, you know, how can we enhance the local experience and to move that forward. So I would challenge the question, I guess, of the spirit behind the waiver, you know, checking boxes, there no limit. But there also is a dollar and cents side, if I can just speak frankly with you. We're not going to have a large, elaborate system of evaluating waivers, because at one level, how much money are we supposed to spend to evaluate a waiver, when in reality it's about raising the funds to enable a dynamic and a viable learning experience for young people. So that's my lens as I approach answering that question going forward. And it's my commitment to you on this call that we will grow this program, and we will have a program that everybody's proud of, and it's a program that at the local level will be enhanced because of this investment in our future. And I'm looking to each of you to partner with me as we move that forward.
All right, thank you, Wade. Are there any other questions at this time, either in the chat box or that you would just like to unmute yourself and ask? I have a question from Lauren. How can we explain the benefits of the program fee to our families since it is going to the state? How can we explain how it benefits the local experience? Not all of our families participate in the state 4-H events. We appreciate to hear where the money is going, but the explanation is still very vague. So Wade, I'll turn that question over to you as well.
Lauren, it's purposely vague at this point because our opportunity to dialogue about prioritization and drilling down to what benefits you in the local unit is a process that I want to be purposeful in going forward. Just to help you understand where I'm coming from, is that we will invite folks in our system, our stakeholders, including our young people, to be a part of helping prioritize and talk about and giving us feedback as far as what matters at the local level and what enhances that learning pathway going forward. Do know that I'm working with some of you in field testing and talking about what does that look like going forward. So I honestly wish I could just stand here and tell you this is what it's going to look like, X, Y, and Z. And I know I've heard it from parents and I've heard it from stakeholders across the state as I've been visiting local units. But at the same token, what my commitment is to say, give us a chance, give us an opportunity to invest in something that will benefit you locally. Hopefully some of those things that you heard about earlier resonate, and I appreciate the feedback. But do know that I'm intentionally going to be helping facilitate a process of discernment and involving our stakeholders and giving clarity to what that looks like going forward. This is not like a budgeted item that we have money from the state and we can determine how it's going to look going forward. Quite frankly, this will be a lagging investment, meaning we don't know how much money is coming in for this next program year. We've anticipated, but until we actually have money that we can actually turn around and invest in, we will not be, spending those dollars towards any initiatives without first getting feedback. And so I do hope that you'll be a part of the process. I'm sure you will, in helping us have feedback as to what helps enhance those community clubs and what allows that learning experience to even be more dynamic than it already is. And so I appreciate the question, but all I can do at this point is be transparent about where I'm at in the process and why I'm purposing to solicit feedback in a process over the course of this coming fall so that we can have more of an informed decision and hearing the voice of our stakeholders going forward before we put forward a plan as to what exactly it's going to look like there in your local unit. So thank you for the opportunity to respond.
All right, we do have another question from Ginny McDaniel. She wants to know if it is $165 per county or per unit. Ginny, that is $165 per county. So if you have 2 counties in your unit, it would be 165 times 2. So it's the number of counties that are in your unit that you will be billed for the 4-H Online. Are there any other questions that we have out there? If not, I am going to turn this back to Diane before we end our call.
Again, we appreciate everybody's time in joining us today, or if you're listening to the recording, thanks for that. There will be a follow-up email sent from Amy Solik that will include the link to our web resources that we mentioned, also a link to the survey about your payment plans, and then also information on how to view the program fields within 4-H online through the Demo County site and those new enrollment guides. So be watching for that.
All right. Again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. This call was recorded and will be posted online later today. So thank you so much.